I've had a lot of questions about milling our own flour. I'm gonna try to hit them all in one single video kind of quickly so you don't have to listen to me yap forever. Starting with our mill, we have the Mockmill 200. The 100 does the exact same thing, just a little bit slower. This one does have the stones that grind the flour. It has the dial on the side that you can go from coarse all the way to extra fine, depending on what you're milling. The stones themselves can be recalibrated if they wear out over time or if they kind of move away from each other. We've had this for 4, maybe 5 years, and we've only had to recalibrate it one time. There are other mills that you can get. We initially had the attachment for our mixer. I will say that it was a good introduction to milling. It kind of gave us an idea if it was something that we were interested in, but I will also note that it was very slow, very messy, dusty. There was always a coat of dust on everything in the kitchen by the time I was done. And it took at least 3 passes to do what our current mill does in a single pass. And overall, I was more concerned about potentially burning out the motor on our mixer because it would get really hot really fast, and that would make me super sad. The main grains that we keep on our counter back there are hard red, hard white, einkorn, and soft white. With these 4, you can pretty much make anything that calls for flour. If you're wanting to make bread or anything with yeast that makes it rise, you're going to want hard red, hard white, or einkorn. I will say that using all einkorn right off the bat with no experience with fresh milled flour, it's very easy to get frustrated. I highly encourage you to cut it with one of these 2 when you're first starting out. If you're making cookies, cakes, biscuits, anything that uses baking soda or baking powder to make it rise, you're gonna want something lower in gluten like a soft white or einkorn. But again, I will say right off the bat, I would not use this one by itself. Cut it with some soft white. It'll be a lot easier to work with and get a handle on how the dough should feel or batter. What recipes do you use? We use the exact same recipes that we used before we switched from all-purpose to fresh milled flour. We just now use that in place. Nothing different there. A question that I see a lot is how would I make King Arthur unbleached all-purpose flour? I hate to break it to you, I'm not King Arthur, but I am the queen of this kitchen, and my goal is not to make all-purpose flour. In order to get something that is fluffy, white, all-purpose flour consistency, you would have to remove the bran and the germ, and we use the flour as is when it comes out of the mill. We don't remove anything, we use the entire berry. Where do you buy grain? There's lots of places online. There may even be places close to you that sell it or carry it. You never know until you look. We've used brands from Azure, Palouse, and then we had a third one that we tried that was really expensive and it just wasn't any different quality-wise, so we didn't rebuy. I think that I covered most of the main questions. If you have anything else, put it down below. Fresh milled flour tips and tricks part 2, starting with what's your conversion for all-purpose to fresh milled flour. As I stated in the last video, we use the exact same recipes that we used before we switched from all-purpose to fresh milled. I don't do any conversions. I've got a couple tips and tricks that I think help me with that, but I'm going to start this off and say that I think that a lot of the problems that people have can be avoided by not over adding flour from the beginning and giving it just a little bit of extra time. For bread, I saw a lot of people say that they struggle with getting their loaves to rise or they're super dense and crumbly. I have found that it does take probably double the amount of time of kneading to develop that gluten to be strong enough to rise. You'll see people say that they add Vital Wheat gluten or some other conditioner to their dough. In my experience, that does give you a workable dough quicker, but your end loaf will tend to be crumbly and not really hold up to being toasted or made into a sandwich. The only way that I have found to get a good strong rise is to develop that natural gluten within the flour. For cookies and cakes, I saw a lot of people say that their cookies spread way out or their cakes will sink in the middle. When I make those things, I will mix up my dough or my batter and then I'll preheat the oven. That couple of minutes that takes to preheat will give your dough or your batter time to come together, absorb that liquid, and I haven't had any issues with cookies or cakes since I started doing that. Another thing I saw was help. I made a loaf of bread with fresh milled flour and it tastes like wheat. It is wheat. I can't help with that. Maybe it was sarcasm. I struggle with sarcasm. But it was asked a couple of times. A lot of people asked about gluten-free options. We mill a couple of gluten-free grains, but I don't specialize in gluten-free recipes. I have seen others that do have the exact same mill that we have, and their stuff looks great, so it is possible. How do we store our grains? We keep the majority of it in airtight buckets with the gamma lids that spin on, and then I keep enough on the counter that usually lasts us like a week or so, depending on how quickly we use it. It's really up to you and how fast you're gonna go through it. I would not recommend leaving it in the bags, especially after you've opened them. How much flour does 1 cup of grain make? 1 cup of grain usually yields anywhere between 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 cups milled. That will depend on the type of grain you're using and the setting that you have your mill on. I'm gonna piggyback on that question and say that if you have 5 pounds of grain, you will have 5 pounds of flour. The mill doesn't remove anything and we don't remove anything from it. I think I hit all the popular questions from the last video. If I missed any, we'll have a part 3.